two detainees, Al-Dubi and Benatef, were considered to be the most compliant detainees in Guantanamo camp, and they were put in the lowest risk category in Guantanamo.
Benatef is someone who was classified a high risk by Joint Task Force Guantanamo. Now, what this means is they believe that he is someone who is likely to pose a threat to the U.S., its interests, and allies around the world. JTF Gitmo split the detainee population into 3 different categories, ranging from low risk to medium risk to high risk, and he was put in that high risk category.
Talking there about 2 detainees released from Guantanamo Bay this past week, transferred to Ghana because they were low risk, but they weren't low risk. And in fact, the information minister at Ghana, telling our own Steve Hayes here, Jojo Bruce Kwanzaa, the information minister at Kwanzaa, I should say, at the Ghana embassy in Washington, D.C., told us the U.S. government provided assurances that Mr. Benatef was never involved in terrorism and presented little risk. If that assurance was not there, he said there is no way his government would have taken the detainees. And now it's a big deal in Ghana. We're back with the panel. Steve, it's a great piece posting tonight on Wall Street Journal.
Thank you. Well, it's a big deal in Ghana, and I think it should be a big deal here. And what I think is most important for people to understand about this case is this isn't a single case. This is representative of the kinds of transfers and releases that we've seen from the Obama administration and to a certain extent from the Bush administration before it. But this particular detainee, Mohammed Benatef, was a very bad guy. But you just heard from the president of Ghana that the administration assured them that he was never involved in terrorism, said there was little risk in them accepting him. But you went over in your package, you went over his resume, as it were. The last time that military intelligence officials reviewed at JTF Gitmo, reviewed his background, they said he was assessed to be a fighter in Osama bin Laden's 55th Air Brigade. He was an admitted member of the Taliban. He participated in hostilities against the United States, continued to demonstrate his support for extremism and Osama bin Laden, recruited by al-Qaeda, stayed at al-Qaeda guest houses, trained at the famous al-Qaeda al-Farouk training camp. Name was found on al-Qaeda documents. He has threatened to kill U.S. citizens and, as you pointed out, slit their throats. As a result, JTF Gitmo, when they did their assessment of him, said he was a high-risk detainee, both high risk to the guards at Guantanamo, and certainly if he were released as high risk, they said he is likely to pose a threat to the United States, its interests, and its allies.
Amy, it's interesting that this story doesn't register. You know, this is just happening, and suddenly we get a release that 34 more are gone, and everybody says, well, there they go.
Okay. Well, part of it is that Congress has made itself pretty clear about what it says. We're not going to bring any of these to the U.S. And this is also happening in the backdrop of a lot of other really bad stuff going on in the world. It's not raising it to that level. If we do see one of those people who's been released end up either dead because of a drone strike or in some sort of attack somewhere else, absolutely this will become a bigger story.
Steve, quickly before I come to you, Charles, Al-Quso is this guy that was released from Gitmo, is now the head of the al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula arm.
One of the leaders of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, released in July of 2012.
Charles.
Look, this reminds me of the administration's argument on the Iran deal and pretending for every violation of the Iranians, the administration would explain it away, often lying. It's his ends and means for Obama. He has an objective. He wants to empty Guantanamo. He pretends it's because it's a recruiting tool. Everybody knows that's a farce. And then they give us, and they gave the Ghanaians, I assume, false information about the nature of these guys. I think the reason it hasn't registered in the press, public opinion, is because nobody can find Ghana on the map. But when they try to send one of these miscreants into the U.S., it will be a huge story. And that's why they're trying to send them abroad.
And very quickly,
first,
the NSC says they'll let the Ghana statement stand, and they're not going to comment on these documents released by WikiLeaks. I don't know if that's going to stay.
But they're U.S. government documents. No, I mean, this is the frustrating thing. You go to the White House, you go to the NSC, you say, how do you square what the Ghana government is saying publicly with what we've seen in these assessments. Look, this is a formerly top-secret risk assessment produced by military and intelligence experts at Gitmo. Either it's right or it's wrong, but the administration won't say it. And last thing, quickly, on the news media, it's not that the news media isn't covering it, it's that they're covering for the administration. The New York Times, in describing a release just yesterday, sending 10 detainees to Oman, described them as lower-level detainees. They are not. 5 of them were high risk, 5 of them were medium risk. And even medium risk means a possibility of taking action against the United States.